Well, the Big D back and better than ever as we kick off the 2025 college football season. Yes, college football around the corner and the Big D ready to break it down. Before I do, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. See all my content. I'll be starting class next week at FGCU. Also, check out the Big D podcast, Spotify, and Apple. So joining us, the only guy who will see Drew Allen play at Penn State and Caleb Williams play at Soldier Field this year. David Moulton. So, David, how many miles do you travel during the football season?
Oh my goodness, you really have to start there. I have eight, I believe, trips to the Pacific time zone on the schedule right now, which could become 9. You throw in 2 or 3 trips to the Mountain time zone. It's 11 or 12 trips this year between Big Ten on CBS Saturdays and Monday Night Football. Especially the 3:30 Saturday slot, D, has turned into the West Coast slot. I don't know if Fox envisioned this when, USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington joined the conference and they're married to that big noon. That's their thing. Well, are you ever going to televise Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA at home at big noon? No, it's 9 a.m. West Coast time. Okay, so think about that. You'll never have a home game for those 4 teams. And I don't know if Fox really, took that into consideration. And then, prime time for NBC at 7:30 is a 4:30 local kick, which is a little awkward. It's like, so we have got a lot. I think we have 6 games, 2 in California, 3 at Washington, and 1 at Oregon right now that are tentatively scheduled to be CBS games this year, which are 12:30 local kicks and 3:30 Eastern.
And then Ohio State fans are like, can we have one night game, please?
Hell, they're like, can we have one 3:30 game? I mean, yeah, they're like, I'm so tired of. And it's another difference between the Big Ten and the SEC. The SEC television contract, when it was more than just one network, which is what it is now, like CBS could only show a team 5 times at 3:30. If they wanted to show a team a 6th time, they had to petition the league. It brought in ESPN, who would then lose that game, and a negotiation took place. And, a couple of times the negotiations worked out and CBS was able to show a team for a 6th time. But that's it. The limit was 5. So Alabama during Saban, Florida with Tebow. I mean, the thought was, they do Tebow every week. And actually, we only did 5. I mean, that's all that was allowed. Now, when they made it to Atlanta, we did a 6th. But my understanding is the Big Ten doesn't have that worked into their TV contract, that Fox could show Ohio State 12 times if they wanted. And so, yeah, the Ohio State fan base is tired of, they didn't want the Texas game at noon. Texas certainly didn't want it as 11 a.m. local kick. You got fans who are like, we don't have time to tailgate. And then do I really need the Saturday night hotel room if, the game's over at 3:30? So, yeah, it's funny. The noon kicks have become an issue for a few of the bigger teams in the Big Ten.
And maybe just in college football, I mean, I don't know. I mean, how about having the biggest game of the year at noon instead of in prime time, or at least 3:30? But that's just me. I don't make the schedule.
Well, yeah, I mean, people have their preference, 3:30, 7:30, whatever the case may be. I will say, so in college football, if you put the same game on at 3:30 Eastern or 7:30 Eastern or 8 o'clock, the 3:30 game does better. Don't know why that is, but that's just the case. I mean, because we did LSU Alabama many times at CBS, and we put it in prime time many times. But there were a few, like the 2019 showdown between Burrow and Tua at 3:30, did a monster number, bigger than some of our primetime Alabama LSU games. And part of that's because Saturday night's date night. And people make plans for Saturday nights, and they don't necessarily want to sit at home and watch a college football game. It's the one night a week for couples to go out and do something. So anyway, don't want to, bog you down with TV talk, but that's how it went.
I mean, starting with the conference you do now, Big Ten. I don't know about you, but Penn State reminds me so much of last year's Ohio State Buckeye team, not just the quarterback, the running backs, but this has got to be James Franklin year for Nittany Lions to win. No difficult non-conference game, only 2 big-time games, that being Oregon, which will probably be a whiteout game, and at Ohio State, obviously.
Yeah, and people forget that last year Ohio State lost twice in the regular season, but they still made the playoff, and we all know what happened then. So that's, Dylan, the part that you bring up, which is very significant. They have a joke of a non-conference schedule, and they only have 2 games on the schedule in which they probably won't be a double-digit favorite. So barring an injury to Aller or something happening to both running backs, you figure the worst Penn State's going to do is 10-2. The worst they're going to be is 10-2, and then they'll make the playoff. And then if they're healthy, they arguably have the best, most experienced roster in the country in the playoff. And who does that sound like? Ohio State a year ago. And the similarities are shocking, actually. Ohio State had the 2-headed monster in the backfield. They both got drafted. Well, so does Penn State. An experienced quarterback that Ohio State had. Well, Penn State's got Drew Aller. Ryan Day, a coach who couldn't win the big one. And, well, James Franklin. Ohio State spent all that money to keep kids in school one more year and not go pro and be a Saturday or Friday draft pick. Penn State did the same thing. Ohio State had a couple areas of needs. They went out and filled them. Penn State needed wide receivers. They went and got them. Ohio State had Chip Kelly come in as offensive coordinator. Penn State with a big coordinator change. I mean, the similarities are stunning. And so since it worked out for Ohio State, don't you have to say, if not now, when for Penn State?
Yeah, and I mean, there will be more pressure on James Franklin to win this year. And I mean, yeah, Penn State got to the playoff, and we know what happened, the Orange Bowl, but I think if Penn State doesn't win this year, then we have to start looking at James Franklin like who was the Ohio State coach before?
John Cooper.
Like John Cooper in the 90s.
Right.
Or maybe more correct.
Now, I will say Franklin caught a bad break early in his career. Penn State won the Big Ten and didn't get a spot in the 4-team playoff. All right. And instead, the team they beat in the regular season, Ohio State, got the at-large spot in their place. And would people be talking and viewing James Franklin differently if that Penn State team had at least made the playoff? The Saquon teams lost at Columbus by a point in an epic game. He's been real close. That national semi with Notre Dame last year, that was a one-play game. But he and they haven't made that play yet. If this team doesn't, I mean, an experienced quarterback. Look, D, at all of the college teams this year that are counting on talented but inexperienced quarterbacks. Even Texas with Arch Manning, 4 career starts. New starter for Ohio State. You want to go down the road? Fairly new starter for Georgia. New starter for Oregon. New starter for Alabama. I mean, there's a ton of teams with high expectations. That's why, to me, LSU with Nussmeier, Clemson with Kubinak there, and Penn State with Aller. How could you not look at these teams and go, wow, what a gift you guys have. You have a good, experienced quarterback. All these other teams have talented, inexperienced quarterbacks. I've got to believe, Klubenik, by the way, got to believe that makes a difference.
It will that first game of the year when Nussmeier and play in Death Valley, but we'll talk about that
I
later.
mean, they that could be first and second team All-American right there at the position. I mean, it really could.
Might be the first and second pick in the draft, but guys in Happy Valley and Austin will have something to say about that.
We'll see.
Speaking of the team that won the national championship, I know Ohio State lost a ton of guys from that team, but the Buckeyes don't rebuild; they reload.
Right.
And the funny thing is, Ohio State goes into the season with probably the best offensive player and defensive player in the country, that being Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs.
Absolutely. Hopefully they stay healthy because there's no reason either guy should be in college. I mean, think about it. If it was basketball, they would have been top 10 picks in the NBA draft. And so hopefully they stay healthy because there's really no reason for them to be there. I know they're getting checks now, but they'd get bigger checks or similar checks anyway if they were playing on Sundays. Of course they're talented. They're always going to be. Will there ever be a case when Ohio State doesn't have one of the 5 most talented rosters in the country? I don't think there will be. If we're just going by talent, we're adding up stars on the recruiting trail and what have you. So, but, they've got a schedule. I mean, open it up with Texas. Open it up with the consensus number 1 team in the country. That's fun. They are a favorite, but so, we'll see. The good thing we know is they can lose twice and they'll make the playoff. And that's what it's all about. Home game, bye, seeding, whatever. Eventually you got to beat them all. But they can lose 2 games and make the playoff. And, then they're fine. I think they'd prefer if they go 10-2 to actually beat Michigan this year instead of what they did last year. But, we'll see.
Yeah, and also a few changes with Ohio State. Both coordinators are gone. Of course, Chip Kelly with the Raiders, and the DC is at Penn State, right?
Yes. Yep. And yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, we wonder with the Lions in the NFL with their brain drain, losing both coordinators, how that's going to affect them. We'll see with Ohio State. I have to believe opening with Texas is not ideal. That I think Ohio State would prefer it be week 2 instead of week 1. But, it's great for us, the fan.
Yeah. Great for Fox. I mean, we know who's going to do that game. And how about the team that Ohio State smacked in the Rose Bowl, Oregon? Ducks, you're going to see them week 2 in Eugene. Looks like Dante Moore is going to replace Dylan Gabriel as the starting quarterback in the Ducks. I mean, it's not the hardest schedule I've ever seen. I mean, they've got a trip to Penn State, but looks like right now the Ducks play one ranked team. Now, there are some tricky games in there. At Iowa in November sounds alarm bells because Iowa could muck up one game and beat somebody.
No doubt. There's a couple tricky games on the schedule. But, I mean, they are preseason top 10. I think they're consensus number 7 in the country in the 2 polls. So, from a talent standpoint, they should only be an underdog once this year. And that's when they go to Penn State right around November 1st. And, they lost a lot, though. They lost experience on the offensive line. They obviously lost talent and experience at quarterback. I think the question with Oregon is always, is Oregon tough enough? Dan Lanning preaches toughness. He came from a coordinator position at Georgia where obviously they were all about toughness. Can Oregon be physical enough when they need to be? Last year, Ohio State twice, that defense, even though they won the first game, that defense was crumbling in the first meeting and obviously fell apart in the second. All right, they gave up a bunch of points to Penn State, even though they won the Big Ten title game. I don't think Oregon can count on winning some of the shootouts that they won last year. I think they need to be better defensively.
And I don't know if you've seen the report, but I'm hearing like Oregon's got a bunch of wide receiver injuries, and that can't happen, especially down the road. Now, maybe doesn't hurt the Ducks early in the year, but if the
Right.
Ducks have those issues later, bad things are going to happen.
Well, yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, when your toughest non-conference game is a home one against Oklahoma State, you can kind of ease into the conference schedule. I think you should be fine.
Yeah. We saw Indiana last year surprise to make the playoff. Any team could make the playoff this year outside the big three.
Outside of the big three conferences
No, big three
or the
teams.
Big Ten? Uh, the one that everybody's talking up, so it's not a surprise, is Illinois this year's Indiana. First off, they won 10 games a year ago. So they're not out of nowhere situation like Indiana was. But if Illinois were to make the playoff, it'd be like, oh, wow, Illinois in a 12-team playoff? But Illinois week 4 is at Indiana. And week 5, they host USC. Week 7, they host Ohio State. So they host USC and Ohio State. And they played at Oregon last year. They don't have Oregon on the schedule this year. They don't have Penn State on the schedule this year. They don't have Michigan on the schedule this year. So you think about the consensus top 5 teams in the Big Ten. Ohio State, not on their schedule. Penn State, not on their schedule. Michigan's considered the 4th or 5th best team in the Big Ten, not on their schedule. Okay? They're at Illinois. They host USC. They're at Indiana. They're at Washington. And they're at Wisconsin. So they've got some tricky games. But if you're a legit top 15 team in the country, and Illinois is in both preseason top 15s, they brought virtually everybody back. They spent money in the portal to upgrade the roster. They have an experienced quarterback, and they have a coach who knows how to win in Brett Bielema. If they're a legit top 15 team, believe it or not, they're favored at home against USC. They'd be a slight favorite at Indiana. They'd be a slight favorite at Washington, and they'd be favored at Wisconsin. The only game right now on their schedule you could argue, D, that Illinois will be an underdog in is when they host Ohio State in mid-October. I mean, did we know that Indiana was going to be favored in 10 or 11 games last year in the preseason? No. We're looking at Illinois right now. Non-conference schedules, Western Michigan, Western Illinois, Duke. Now, Duke's not bad, by the way. Duke's not bad. Duke's like the solid middle of the ACC. A lot of people have them as like the 6th best team in the conference, and it is a road game. Could be tricky. But I mean, if you're going to make the playoff, you got to win the tricky games. Indiana won all the tricky games last year, including beating Michigan at home. Only game they lost was at Ohio State. Could Illinois be this year's Indiana? And D, I think we'll find out week 4 when they travel to Indiana.
Yeah, and by the way, the team with the hardest schedule in the Big Ten this year, Wisconsin. I mean, at Alabama, Ohio State, at Oregon. I mean, I don't know what Wisconsin did to deserve this gauntlet of a schedule.
Well, I agree. And in what is supposedly a make or break year, it was kind of like Napier last year. We all thought, how's he going to survive this schedule? And it turned out the schedule was not quite as hard at the end of the year as it looked at the beginning of the year. And number 2, Lagway developed, and Napier could survive. And now they got some momentum coming into this year. A team that's not ranked, if you will say Big Ten for 30 more seconds, a team not ranked, Nebraska. And I know, when is Nebraska going to be back? Blah, blah, blah. Well, remember, first off, they have a good head coach. Secondly, they got a quarterback.
Dylan Raiola?
Yes, who's the Mahomes lookalike in number, throwing motion, and everything. And if you're into schedules, Nebraska should be able to win week 1. They play Cincinnati at Arrowhead Stadium. So it's really a neutral site game. They'll probably have more fans than Cincinnati will in what was a Cincinnati home game. Akron, Houston Christian. First conference game at home, Michigan. Michigan's not going to have their head coach. He's suspended for the game. And first Big Ten game for the young quarterback of Michigan. And D, if Nebraska wins that and they're 4-0, Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern. Now they're what? 8-0 and it's November and they're hosting USC.
Woo.
Then they've got UCLA. Is it possible Nebraska's 9-1 or better when they go to Penn State the Saturday before Thanksgiving? I'm just saying, if you want an Indiana, not ranked, not being talked about, I think it would be Nebraska. I'm telling you, that's a schedule where if you have your act together, you're going to win 10 games or more.
And if Dylan Raiola's who we think he is, ooh.
Bingo. It's so funny, D. We just talked about Illinois week 4 at Indiana. Nebraska week 4 hosting Michigan. I think we'll know right then, September 20th, whether or not we're going to have another potential Indiana in the Big Ten or whether it's just going to be Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon.
Well, the team that Ohio State plays week 1, that being Texas, I think they have this quarterback named Manning. I don't know. His first name sounds like Archie, but it's Arch. Number 1 team in the country, but yet the Longhorns are a dog, and I don't know. I mean, we know Salk's recruiting. We know Texas spends big boy money in the portal, but Texas is replacing 4 out of 5 offensive linemen, bunch of wide receivers. And how about Arch Manning's first big-time road game is Columbus?
I don't think he'll be all that fazed by the environment. I mean, the scrutiny he's been under for a while now, going all the way back to high school. Obviously, they play in some pretty big environments in the SEC. Yeah, first big road game, you could argue, but he's got more experience than the guy who's going to be starting on the other side. Like I said, I think both teams would prefer this be a week 2 than a week 1, but it just so happens that's where it is. Here's the thing about Texas, though. Like, we know you can lose 2 games and make the 12-team playoff. Can you lose 3? Now, Texas only has 2 games at Ohio State and at Georgia that they're going to be an underdog in. But let's just say they lose them both. I mean, Georgia's preseason top 5, Ohio State's preseason 2 or 3. That's not outrageous, is it? To say that they might lose one of those games? Okay. Now, remember when Notre Dame lost early last year to Northern Illinois and we said they got to run the table? With their schedule, I don't think 10-2 gets them in. They got to run the table. So they played 10 pressure games in a row. Notre Dame did. I just wonder if Texas is going to be playing pressure games pretty early in the season, if you know what I mean. Because Texas also has to go to Florida. Texas has Oklahoma, obviously, in the Red River rivalry / shootout. Texas has A&M. Okay, I'm just saying, what if they lose both the top 5 games on their schedule, Ohio State and Georgia? They don't have any margin of error. We've not seen a 3-loss team make one of these playoffs yet. So until they do, you can only afford 2. Well, Texas got 2 top 5 teams on their schedule, both on the road. I'm telling you, pay attention to Texas. They can't lose a game they're favored in this year and make the playoff. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, but what if Texas beats Ohio State in a couple weeks? Then
okay, but does it matter? I mean, we saw last year Ohio State was the 8th seed. I mean, D, I can make the case since we still have bye weeks, it's better to not be a top 4 seed.
absolutely.
I'll throw this out there, by the way. If you're Notre Dame, you don't have a conference championship game in the first weekend of December. So your season ends in November. I don't know what that last Saturday is, the 28th, 9th. I don't know what it is.
I think it's Stanford, but I'm not 100% because
No, I just mean the date. So their season ends November 29th, I believe it is. Next week is conference championship week. Next week's Army-Navy week. Next week is round 1 of the playoffs for the 8 teams who didn't get buys. That means the earliest Notre Dame will play, if they're a top 4 seed, which many people expect them to be, because right now they're favored in all 12 games they play. That means Notre Dame will go a month without playing before they play their national quarterfinal. We thought Oregon was affected by having a 3-week layoff last year before they played Ohio State. Notre Dame could have a 4.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. That's not ideal, to say the least.
The team, one of the most consistent programs the last 7 or 8 years. Last year, I think Georgia fans complained about all the difficult road games this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this year, Georgia gets everybody at home. I looked at Georgia's schedule right now. I think the Dogs have what? Let me think. 3 true road games this year. The Dogs play Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas at home, of course, get Florida and Jacksonville, and Georgia Tech and Mercedes-Benz. Dogs scheduled.
Well, that can happen for Georgia when A, they don't play a road non-conference game, which they very rarely do, and B, since the Florida game's always a neutral site, then that means that it's 4 home, 3 road, 1 neutral site when it's not a Georgia year to be the home team. And so that's what you have this year. And yes, think about their road schedule. They're at Tennessee. That's a 3-hour bus ride. They're at Auburn. That's a 2.5-hour bus ride. And they're in Starkville. It could be the only time they get on a plane this year is to go play Mississippi State, the worst team in the SEC. So, yes. And remember, it was Kirby, after winning the SEC title last year, who complained about their schedule on the podium right to the commissioner, Greg Sankey. So, yes, Georgia was complaining about their schedule last year. They ain't going to be complaining about it this year.
The question is, how will Gunnar Stockton do as Georgia's quarterback this year? Because, we saw what Gunnar did in the SEC title game. Looked overwhelmed in the playoff against Notre Dame, but practically it wasn't Gunnar Stockton's fault. What happened, he wasn't experienced enough for the moment.
Well, it goes back to the storyline of top teams with talented but inexperienced quarterbacks. Are we sure they're all going to perform? Probably not. So who's going to perform and who's going to need a year? Remember, Joe Burrow wasn't Joe Burrow his first year playing at LSU. He had a breakthrough win late in the year, but Joe Burrow was a good quarterback. Looked as if Joe Burrow was going to be very good his final year. And then obviously he was historic. Okay. What if Stockton is only a good quarterback this year? Is Georgia SEC champion? How many games do they win in the playoff if he's merely a good quarterback? You mentioned they have a favorable schedule. They may go 11-1 if he's only, quote, good. They do play Alabama. They do play Texas. They do play Florida, by the way. And I do believe this is the first time in 5 years that at the line of scrimmage, Florida can play with Georgia. Not saying they're going to win the game, but if Lagway's healthy, they'll have the better quarterback. And if they truly can compete up front, I think we get our best cocktail party in a while this year if Lagway's healthy. Because remember, they were competing with Georgia pretty damn well last year when Lagway was healthy. And then he got hurt and the game went away.
Yeah, times are changing in the SEC. Obviously we know what Nick Saban did at Alabama. And now this year, Todd going into a new season. I looked at Alabama's schedule this year. I know they've got the road game against Georgia. They've got the non-conference games against Florida State and Wisconsin, but Florida State's eons from what it was. Wisconsin, I don't know what to think of Wisconsin. I mean, can Kalen DeBoer and Ty Simpson get it together this year? And maybe
Well,
Alabama's sort of better?
oh, they'll be better. First off, he can really coach. I mean, really coach. He had Washington playing for the national championship. Okay. Now say it out loud. Let it sink in. He can really coach. I mean, take a look at his record everywhere he's been. He's an elite coach. Now he's got a feel for the league. Now he's got a feel for the type of player that truly works in this league and doesn't. And it's year 2 in his systems and year 2 with his roster. And they've had a good transfer portal year. Now, yes, will they be elite? Probably comes down to whether or not the kid who's in his 4th year in the program and has been the official backup the last 2 years, is he ready? Is it his time, or is he the only one they got and they just couldn't replace him? We'll find out. But another quarterback without a ton of starting experience on a preseason top 10 team. I don't think I've ever seen, this many preseason top 10 teams who have quarterbacks with 4 starts or less in their career.
Yeah, and we're going to learn all about Alabama. I mean, this year. I mean, Georgia, I think they have LSU and Oklahoma back-to-back at home, and of course go to Auburn for the Iron Bowl, which you did plenty of Iron Bowls. They've been 4th and 30s. They've been kick sixes, Hail Marys. I'm like, what next?
Well, when the funky stuff happens, it happens on the plains of Auburn. Okay. The funky stuff doesn't happen in Tuscaloosa. All right.
Well,
Cam Newton and the Cam back. Okay. And then you got to go all the way back to really the days of Bear Bryant. Okay. To have funky stuff happen in Tuscaloosa. But, the Cam back down 24-0. That's the one Alabama Auburn funky game, if you will, that took place in Tuscaloosa. Otherwise, the funky stuff happens, at Jordan Hare.
Yeah, and that was on Black Friday, if I remember right.
The Camback was. The Camback was on Black Friday. It was a 2-year trial. SEC and CBS negotiated it. It did great ratings. The Friday game, it started in Auburn in 2009. McElroy had to leave undefeated Alabama on this epic 4th quarter, like 85-yard, 19-play drive through the game-winning touchdown pass with 2.5 minutes to go. And then the next year was the Camback. Okay, so the 2 games were terrific. Okay, each team won one. All right, the team that won ended up winning the national title. Okay, and so CBS obviously wanted to renew it. The SEC loved, it did like 7 to 10 million people on Black Friday, which was unheard of numbers at the time. Both fan bases said loudly to their respective administrations, "We hate this. Don't ever do it again." Oh, seriously. No. The fan bases were like, don't care what the network wants. Don't care what the conference wants. We hate this. We like to have Thanksgiving because some people had to travel on Thanksgiving to get to the game on Friday. And they're like, yeah, we don't like this at all. We want the game Saturday, 2:30 Central. Leave our Thanksgiving weekend alone. We've planned it out for 30 years.
Could anybody beat this year's Tennessee in the SEC? I think of 2 teams in particular. 3 teams. LSU, Oklahoma, and Florida. I think OU put together a really good quarter. Got some guys on offense. We know OU was good defensively. Obviously beat Alabama last year. It's funny that Oklahoma was 6-7. I'm like, I know OU was going to struggle in the SEC, but 6-7 doesn't feel right for OU.
I don't think Tennessee has the weaponry, by the way, to beat Tennessee again. Now, Florida and Oklahoma have really difficult schedules. I make the case that if either school goes 9-3, A, they should be in the playoff even with 3 losses, and B, the head coach should garner serious consideration for SEC Coach of the Year. Florida and Oklahoma's schedules are hard. LSU's schedule is challenging. at Clemson, at Alabama, but they've got Nussmeier. The only weakness for LSU, D, the offensive line is not what it was last year. Remember, they lost the 4th overall pick of the draft at left tackle. They lost the left side of their offensive line. That's an area of concern, and that's a tough place to have concern and think you're going to be able to successfully navigate the season. But of the 3 you mentioned, I think Oklahoma and Florida's schedules exclude them. I think LSU, also the most talented of the 3 teams, I think they lose the opener to Clemson. But I think if you're looking for a team to make the playoff out of the SEC who was unexpected a year ago like Tennessee, I know they're preseason top 10, but I would say LSU, who's picked to finish 4th by most folks in the SEC. And remember, that conference only got 3 bids last year.
Yeah, and by the way, for a team replacing offensive line, Clemson might have the best D line in the country, and going in that way.
Yep.
Nesmire's not really a mobile quarterback. He's not a lightweight.
No, but he is a pro quarterback, and in theory, he should be able to read the defenses and get rid of it quickly. He held on to it a little bit last year, tried to make some plays. Also, LSU is a week 1 problem. Kelly hasn't won week 1, and they've what 5 in a row, 6 in a row they've lost week 1?
Florida State twice and USC the last 3 years. Now, unlike Georgia, LSU will play a tough week 1 game.
They will. They like to. They want the national exposure. All right. But yeah, I'm not a fan of week 1 doing it. I'm a fan week 2 doing it. You know, like Notre Dame, Michigan, it was always negotiated between the 2 schools when they played in the 70s and 80s. When would it be week 1 or week 2? Florida State, oftentimes they played that game for years week 1. Hell, Florida and Miami, like they did last year when they played back in the day, they often played week 1. I'm a fan of doing that game week 2.
Well, speaking of Clemson, how about the ACC? I think North Carolina's got this Bill Belichick guy coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have no idea what Belichick's going to do in college, but North Carolina's spending money.
Mm-hmm. Also, they sold out. There's tickets for the year. They've never done that in the history of North Carolina football before. So in a sense, the Belichick hire's already worked. It's having a bit of an effect that Deion had at Colorado financially before he's even played a game. North Carolina goes to UCF in late September, believe it or not. I mean, it'll be nationally televised. Big game for Scott Frost and UCF. Also will be a big game for Belichick. Plus, he's got the Labor Day Monday game. North Carolina TCU, I believe, on Labor Day night. And so he'll have the country watching them for that. So he and they have a chance to, you know, kind of remember Deion started 3-0, even though they went 4-8 his first year, but he won his first 3 games and a couple of them were nationally televised, and it got he and his program off to a good start. Belichick may have that same opportunity at North Carolina. I'm just going to throw this out there. Some guys I really respect. They did a podcast the other day. I'm talking about Bud Elliott, Danny Cannell, Tom Fornelli. Okay. And North Carolina's over-under was 7.5 in terms of wins. They all went over. And those guys don't agree on anything. And they all thought that North Carolina was going to win at least 8 games this year. I went, because I don't think they won 8 games with Drake May at quarterback 2 years ago. So I thought, that's interesting. So, I mean, I've seen North Carolina pick 7th, 8th in the ACC. We'll see. The middle of the ACC is thorny. Duke's going to have their moments. Pitt's going to have their moments. Georgia Tech. Remember, Georgia Tech lost in 8 overtimes to Georgia last year.
That was nuts.
It was. I mean, Georgia Tech's going to have their moments. I know it's Clemson, then it's Miami and SMU, and then it's everybody else. I'm throwing it out there right now. Louisville. Watch out. could make the ACC title game. Throwing it out there.
You mentioned Clemson. I until this year, I felt like Dabo and Clemson had lost a lot from what the Trevor and Deshaun teams were. Dabo never really embraced the portal NIL,
Right.
but this year Clemson's got some guys, veteran quarterback, maybe the best D-line in college football, and I think two big-time opportunities against SEC teams bookend the season. One early, one late.
Also, if you go back, not only did they have the two, franchise quarterbacks in Watson and Lawrence, but they were terrific up front, and they had game breakers at wide receiver. Clemson really hasn't had since 2019, the team that lost to LSU in the Natty. They haven't really had the elite wide receivers. They haven't had the quality and the depth at the line of scrimmage. It had been about 5 years. He's got all of that now and an experienced quarterback. D, I'm going to tell you right now, it's Penn State Clemson in the Natty.
Oof. I think that would be interesting. Have a Nittany Lion and a Tiger. Oh, which cat would roll in Miami?
Also, it'd be the third year in a row with no SEC team
Oof.
in the title game.
I'm sure that would piss off Greg Sankey.
Well, and I don't know that ESPN, ABC would be happy about it either, because there's a few people in that part of the country that love to watch their football, although sometimes they'll watch it because it's the last game of the year. But if you look about experienced quarterback, obviously Clemson's coach knows how to compete for and win a natty. They're in the conference. They're clearly the best, most talented team in their conference. Okay, it would be a shock if they wouldn't make the playoff. And then once they get there, look at their roster in comparison to everybody else. I mean, they're preseason top 5 everywhere. I mean, I know it's not Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, ACC. Also, you want to bet the Heisman? Bet the Clemson quarterback. I'm telling you, he's going to go to New York if he's healthy. They're going to put up points and yards this year in a big way.
Yeah, and I think that week 1 game against LSU is going to be a track meet.
Yes, I do too. Clemson only a 4.5-point favorite, by the way, at home. If they're as good as I think they are, you lay those points.
By the way, looking at ACC schedules, you probably know this. Miami does not leave the state of Florida until November 1st at SMU.
Correct.
That is crazy.
It's probably the game, though, that determines whether or not they're going to make the playoff and or the ACC championship game. Think about it. They're preseason second and third best teams in the conference. Miami doesn't play Clemson this year, correct?
Yes, but they do play Notre Dame in Florida.
They do. They play them both at home, though. And I know they don't have a huge home field advantage, but it's better than being on the road. So they get Notre Dame and the Gators at home. They're catching Florida State in an off year at SMU November 1st. That's the game. Circle it. If they win it, they'll be in Charlotte and they'll be in the playoff.
Oof. Quickly, Big 12. I feel like the Big 12 is wide open this year. Give me a team or two that could make Arlington and maybe make the playoff.
Well, the Big 12 was wide open last year. I think it's more wide open this year. Now, I know they don't have a team in the top 10, but they have, I think, 7 teams in the top 30. Look at the bottom. Look at between 21 and 30. And look at the Big 12 teams and add them up. I'm just going to throw this out there. Utah. They are the best Big 12 team at the line of scrimmage. Period. They are. I think Texas Tech's a year away. BYU doesn't have a quarterback. I can go right on down the list. Okay. I do like Iowa State's quarterback. I think he's really plucky, a terrific college quarterback. But I'm just going to throw it out there. They're not ranked in both major polls. I'm going to go Utah. to represent the Big 12. I want to see Arizona State do it again. Okay, K-State had their opportunity last year, blew it late. I think Colorado, by the way, will struggle just to be bowl eligible, but the Big 12 is a salty conference. I think they need 3 to 5 more years to build some of their programs. Like Texas Tech is spending money as much or more than anybody else. They are buying themselves a football program. Arizona State has a huge undergraduate and online graduate program. There's a ton of money at Arizona State. They're finally committed to spending it on the football program. Arizona State and Texas Tech moving forward can be perennial top 10 teams. They're not there yet, D. And I think the Big 12 will suffer by only getting 1 at most 2 bids for most of the rest of the decade. But I'm telling you, the Big 12 is better positioned than the ACC moving forward in terms of the number of quality programs they could have. Cincinnati, Houston, West Virginia, UCF, none of them have really established themselves yet. If you believe in their upsides, they could all be terrific. Don't sleep on TCU and Baylor. It's not like they lack for talent or money. I think the Big 12 could be incredibly salty, but I don't know, D, when they're going to have elite. And the other conferences right now have elite. The Big 12 doesn't. They just have quality depth.
I will say this about Arizona State. Love the head coach, and I think Sam Levin's the dark horse Heisman candidate this year.
Interesting. I kind of look at the Sun Devils like I look at the Commanders. Love their quarterback, love their coach. Everything went right for the Commanders last year. Everything went right for the Sun Devils last year. Tough to have that happen 2 years in a row.
Plus, no Camp Seattle, but that's another story.
No doubt.
2 more things. One, we know what games are going to be the big ones week 1. What game will be the most important week 1 game?
Ooh. I have my week 1 schedule in front of me here. Huh. Wish I did. Most important week 1 game. Well, I mean, you could argue it's week 0. I mean, you could argue it's Iowa State, Kansas State in Dublin because it's a conference game. Okay. And obviously you need to get to the Big 12 title game to have a shot to make the playoff. And they're both nationally ranked. I mean, I could make the case the most important game in August is in Dublin, week 0, Iowa State, Kansas State. But man, oh man, most important week 1 game. Boy, you kind of stumped me with this one. You really did. Yeah, I'm not. Notre Dame, Miami, because I don't know how many losses Notre Dame could afford if they lose that game.
I concur. Plus, I think Notre Dame's schedule. I think Notre Dame's got 2 difficult games on. One is Miami, the other one being Texas A&M. How Notre Dame won in College Station last year was beyond me. I think there'd be more Notre Dame fans than Miami fans at Hard Rock Labor Day weekend.
I think Notre Dame's schedule is a lot trickier than people believe. I think most people, D, look at their schedule the way you do, which is it's a 2-game schedule, and it's the first 2 games of the year, Miami and A&M. There's a bye in between, and if they can split them or win them both, it's cruise easy sailing. I'm just going to throw this out there. They're going to be favored in all these games, but at Arkansas is a quarterback. They got a coach. It's a noon kickoff, all right, and it's on the road against an SEC team.
And it's the week after A&M.
Well, it's 2 weeks later.
2 weeks.
Also, the very next week, Boise State. Boise State is the unanimous best group of 5 team in the country. And that's who you're playing as a non-conference game, if you know what I mean. Oh, by the way, they've got USC on the schedule. Do we think they're at Pitt in November? Ask a Notre Dame fan about at Pitt late in the season. And by the way, I think Pitt's a lot better than most people think they are. Most people think they're like the 10th best team in the ACC. I think they're like the 6th. All right. I'm just saying, if Notre Dame loses to Miami, I don't know if Notre Dame at 10-2 gets in. They're borderline at 10-2. Big Ten SEC team at 10-2 cruises in. Does Notre Dame get in at 10-2? Just throwing that out there. That's why I think that game for Notre Dame in particular has a ton of meaning.
And even for Miami, you get that game and then beat Florida, and all of a sudden, I mean, Carlson Beck. I mean, the question is how healthy is Carlson Beck coming off the elbow, but I think Miami's got a lot of offense. Have to play some wide receivers, but
yes, they do. Yes, they do. And I think they'll have to run the ball a lot more than they did last year. The offense, I think, is going to have to be a lot more balanced. There's a part of me that think points could be hard to come by in that Miami Notre Dame game.
I'm thinking 20-17. I think it'll be an old school kind of game.
I agree with you. I agree with that. It's exactly what I had in my head. I think the first one to 20 wins.
And do you think NIL is good for college football?
Well, whether you think it's good or not, A, it's not going anywhere, and B, these players should have been compensated a long time ago. I mean, it's free labor, period, end of sentence. I'm usually on the side of the athletes over the colleges and the NCAA. What I think is foolish is to try to separate what's pay for play and what's NIL. It's all pay for play. I mean, it's all of it. There are very few college players who can be paid what they're being paid and actually be part of a marketing campaign that can earn that sponsor or that university its money back. Very few, like 5. So it's all pay for play. And Dylan, I think, by the way, since we've professionalized college sports, I think we should fully professionalize it. I think we should salary cap it. And I think that we should make them employees. All right. And we should collectively bargain. I'm serious. Now, it'll never happen without the courts forcing it on them, because the Ohio States and the Notre Dames of the world, they don't want a salary cap. I mean, they have a huge advantage. They've always had a huge advantage. They don't want to be on the same playing field as Arizona State and Utah and Pitt. No. They don't. So it's part of why I think they're fighting making the athletes employees, which, we all know they are. I mean, they're there to play football. They're employees. I mean, but they're fighting it because, well, one, they don't want them to be employees for legal reasons. But 2, the big schools are like, we don't want a salary cap. Are you crazy? We want like baseball. Okay, the big boys want to be able to be the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Mets and what have you, and spend whatever the heck they want, and let the other teams be the Rays and the Marlins and the Pirates and what have you. Yeah. So, tough to find a Milwaukee Brewers in college football, isn't it?
I mean, the Brewers have won 12 in a row. I mean,
I know.
Maybe Boise State would have been the Brewers when they won the Fiesta Bowls.
Maybe. You're right. Okay. But they're paying like 25 to 28 cents on the dollar compared to the Mets and the Dodgers. Tough to win in college football paying 25 cents on the dollar.
All right. You can hear David. Well, you can see David Moulton, Brad Nessler, and Gary Danielson do week 1, Nevada, Penn State, week 2, Oklahoma State, Oregon, then Monday night, week 1. How about J.J. McCarthy and Caleb Williams at Soldier Field? Sign me up for Big Ten Showdown week on Monday Night Football.
New coach in Chicago. They've been horrible in the division for the last handful of years. They desperately need to start off with a win in a division game, and it'll be J.J. McCarthy's first game since the Natty. So, yeah, because Minnesota's better than they were last year at every other place but quarterback, and they went 14-3 last year. So if J.J. McCarthy can play, look out. But we don't know if he can play.
Be a fun one to see. So thanks, and safe travels all around the country this year. Just be glad you're not going to Sao Paulo or Dublin, right?
That's about all we're not going to, let me tell you. But thanks, D. Appreciate it. And take care, everyone.